Attention Big Blue Nation. Welcome to Kentucky Basketball Then and Now, a unique exploration of America's paramount collegiate hardwood program, featuring anecdotes and memories from the 1950s forward to the very latest on everything UK hoops. Kentucky Basketball Then and Now seats Wildcat fans front court and center. Here's Lexington native and SEC standout Gary Waddell and Owensboro native and Rupp Front senior student manager Mike Harreld.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Kentucky Basketball Then and Now. Again, I'm Gary Waddell. I have my co-host Mike Harreld with me. And then, as he has done 2 or 3 times, we've got Tom Gray, who lives up in northern Kentucky, is on the line with us. So we expect to have a good show today. Obviously, a lot going on in the bluegrass or all over the basketball world. We're, I think, fortunate in Kentucky because besides the NCAA, we have arguably with Indiana the best high school tournament, the most interesting high school tournament in the country. So people look at that until it's over, which it will be this Saturday, as much as they do the NCAA before it gets going. So a lot to be thankful for on the basketball front. Interesting that both Lyon County with Travis Perry and then North Laurel with Reed Shepherd, if they win tomorrow night, they'll be playing on Friday night, and that will be a Coliseum wasn't going to be sold out anyway. It sure will be if those two guys come together. I think they'll be watching Reed Shepherd anyway, being a UK signee, and then watching Travis Perry also. So I would love to be up there. That'll be a heck of a game.
Where is Travis Perry going to school? Is he announced?
No, he has not. UK along with others, and he's a 4-star. I get the feeling some schools aren't 100% trying to recruit him. The Vanderbilts, their coach was up there last night, I guess it was. And so not everybody, I'd be interested to see if Duke wants him in North Carolina, but he reminds me just a little bit of Phil Cox, who played at Vandy about 20 years ago. He can shoot the ball. And of course, Cox came back to really hurt UK because UK Hall didn't want him. And boy, he was all loaded when UK came to town. He basically won a couple games for Vandy against us because he was revenge. He was trying to show Joe, you should have come after him. I wanted to go there, and you didn't offer me a scholarship. So before excuse me,
Gary, Travis Perry, the inside track is Purdue and Matt Painter right now, but he also likes Western Kentucky. I personally don't think he'll come to Kentucky. I'd love for it to happen, but Kentucky doesn't fit everyone's circumstances.
No, and he may be scared am I ever going to play there. So, a lot of people want to go there, but if they're looking at playing time, which every kid is, that could be a real problem at UK because he was recruiting so many great players. Before I forget, and I mentioned this to Tom recently, there's a book out by the name of History of Kentucky High School Basketball, or Kentucky Basketball Encyclopedia, and the author is Jeff Bridgman, and it is a heck of a book. It's got the going all the way back. It took him 11 years to gather this information, but going all the way back since high school basketball started in Kentucky. He's got the district tournament games scores. He's got the regional. He's got the players that made the all-tournament teams. I mean, it's just for both basketball and for men and women. It's just a great book. It's like 600 and some pages. It's very in-depth, and when I get in there, I can't get off of it. So just like Arnsberger, I guess it was who played football at UK, he played basketball in high school for Paris. There's just a lot of interesting little tidbits like that I had no idea these guys played basketball also. But anyway, just keep that in mind that Christmas is a long time off, but for a gift. But it's quite a book. I've read some this morning. Guys, I hate to see Travis Perry break the scoring record of who's the mountain guy?
King Kelly Coleman.
King Kelly Coleman.
There
King
you
Kelly
go.
has been a legend for 60 years. And
Yeah, I didn't know he was going to break his record.
yeah, I think it's only 21 points he needs. And
okay.
King Kelly, and again with some mountain relatives, I've heard about him since I was old enough to walk. And Yeah, I think when he played in the tournament at UK in 50 at the Coliseum in 56 or 7, they left some flyers out of a plane and said King Kelly Coleman is coming to Lexington, like that was such a big deal, and it was. I think he got 50-some points in one of his games in Lexington, but he was quite a guy. Unfortunately, he had a drinking problem. He didn't have the desire to go afterwards, but he must have been a player. Even people who know basketball back then said he could play now. He was an excellent player.
Yeah, I watched him a lot.
Oh, okay.
Because he then, after high school, I think he went one or two other places, but he landed at Kentucky Wesleyan.
Oh, okay.
And he played there for at least three years, and he was fun to watch. I could describe a lot about him, but I don't know if we want to go there right now, but he was a heck of a shooter.
That's what I heard. Played for the Wayland Wasp. It's the only school I've ever known. The nickname was a Wasp. But he must have been something. Are you all watching? Excuse me. Go ahead.
I was going to say he was one of the 3 top high school players in 1956. He was probably the top, except for Oscar Robertson. One of those 2 was probably the top player, and then Jerry West was 3rd in line. So that was a pretty good top 3 in 1956.
No kidding. Yeah.
Oh, I've heard he was great, and I doubt if Adolph took a strong run at him. I don't think he had the character. Adolph's kind of guy, but he was supposed to have been something. Are you all watching this history of Southern basketball?
I have been, yes.
Yes, I am too. I didn't see this last segment. It's the only one I missed.
Well, yeah, it's pretty good. You can find it. It's on all the time in the wee hours of the morning. But, it's kind of interesting to me because a lot of those guys I played against and sweated on and traded elbows, such as last night, Collis Temple. I remember at LSU, he was a big guy, 6'9", as strong as an ox. And, but one thing about Dale Brown, and I'll never forget this, when we played LSU, and Dale was just in his first year. This was February of 73. He was just, and I didn't know who he was basically because he came from Montana at LSU. But we beat him, and it wasn't 5 minutes. We were in the locker room after the game that I heard this shouting. And what had happened was in Florida, our facilities weren't the best. The facilities locker room for opposing team. Well, Mike, you remember this. They just had hooks up on a wall, on a wooden frame. And
so, it really wasn't at least when I was there, it wasn't a real basketball facility. It was just a field house that they had put some goals and temporary bleachers, and the locker rooms weren't a lot better.
Well, you're right. And they didn't take up, they didn't have a bag where the guys were at least supposed to put their valuables. So they got stolen. I mean, the swimmers were in there dressing. The swimming pool was right behind the gym, and a lot of guys just going in there to exercise. On one side of it was weights and all that stuff, no privacy whatsoever. But they got stolen, and my gosh, Dale Brown was calling Tommy Bartlett, our coach, every name in the book. You got a Bush League operation here. And he just went on, and he's got a temper to begin with. I think everybody's seen that. But that's just planted in my brain. And then what?
That's a failure of their coaches and student managers. The first thing I would do on any game that, at our locker facility, at home games, people could lock their lockers if they wanted, but I would keep their valuables then if they wanted. But first thing I would do when they were getting ready to go out to shoot around or whatever is go collect in a bag everybody's valuables and then just keep them with me until we were ready to leave. Because otherwise you're a sitting duck.
Well, you're right. And they may have got the clothes also. I mean, the clothes are up there hanging, and if somebody knew whose they were, they said, well, I'm just going to make it tough on our opponent tonight, take their clothes. I'm not sure, but took valuables. And
Mississippi State would do it if they could. That was the most horrendous place we ever went.
Yeah, but they had the best shower in the league, though.
Okay.
I mean, Mississippi State had a great shower. I remember that. But anyway, Brown showed his temper, and rightfully so on that one. So where's Patino going to go, guys?
I'm going to say Georgetown.
Yeah.
They got a coach, but he might not be the coach after a while. And I think Patino would love to go back to the Big East. That's my guess. I don't know.
Yeah. What
That
about
would be
Notre
a great
Dame?
choice.
What about Notre Dame?
That's a possibility too, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll want the image of him, but they may. Catholic school.
I got a story about Notre Dame. There was a player in the 1980s maybe called LaFonso Ellis from East St. Louis. Really good player.
Oh, he's on TV all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, All-American, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So his final two choices were Notre Dame and Illinois. And Digger Phelps was the coach of Notre Dame then. He convinced LaFonso Ellis he should come to Notre Dame because it was a basketball school and Illinois was a football school.
Yeah.
And I got to give Digger credit. He convinced the kid that Notre Dame was really a basketball school. And he signed with Notre Dame and had a good career there.
Yeah, he did. And,
that's the ultimate persuasion.
He's on
I was going to say that he ought to be a used car salesman if he could pull that one off.
Well, I think Digger was almost a used car salesman.
Yeah.
He was.
One of my high school friends played for him at Fordham.
Oh, yeah. We went up a garden and played them one year. We had every year in December we'd go up and play a team from. We played Manhattan one year, and we played Fordham and in the Garden, and then we had a couple nights, at least one night, to tour New York City, which was great on our own. And what was Digger's nickname? His dad ran a mortuary up there. I forgot. Digger. I guess that's how the Digger came about.
Grave Digger, yeah.
Yep.
First name I think is Richard.
Huh. And that's funny. Yeah. Tom and I were told this morning, Coach K's offspring is having some problems keeping their job this offseason. Mike Bray, and I'm not sure, it may have been a mutual. He's been up there for many years at Notre Dame, but he's retiring, and he may have been shoved the last 2 or 3 years and not been very good up there. And then Nate James was fired yesterday from Austin Peay. So his coaching tree is getting smaller all the time. Of course, last year, Wojo lost his job at Marquette. Anyway, and I'm a little surprised Bobby Hurley still got his job at Arizona State. He's been there 5 or 6 years.
Arizona, that's why.
Well, that's true. The other night they did beat Arizona. I was glad to see that. But so anyway, I'm okay with him as Christian Laettner, that I don't particularly care for, as most Kentucky fans, and they absolutely hated each other. That's common knowledge. And
who was that hated?
Laettner and
Laettner
and Hurley.
And Hurley didn't like each other.
Oh, really? Yeah. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Hurley was weaker, and Laettner would just, he had that quip and sharp tongue, and we've all been around those guys that, at least I have, you got nothing to come back with. I mean, they're just that way, and I think that supposedly before one of the years, Coach K got them together before the season started, and he said, it's obvious, I know you guys don't like each other, but if we're going to have a good season, you've got, at least during game time, you got to like each other. And I don't know how that worked out. Well, they won 2 or 3 championships while they were both there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's an interesting point, because what I've found coaching and watching others is everybody, to be successful, you got to have good players, and everybody needs to know their role, accept it, and do it. They don't have to like it, but they got to do it. And you don't have to be good friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's better if you're good friends, but if everybody will do their job, and you got a coach that can tell you what your job is, it'll work. But of course, dissonance always kind of breeds contempt, and so it's hard to do it.
Yeah. Well, I doubt if there was ever a team where everybody liked each other. The closest, I think, may have been the 04s, they call them, the Florida 4 guys that went on and won 2 championships, because, they hung out together, and which is what it said last night on the show, that those guys were really tight with each other. And when one decided to come back for his junior year rather than making millions in the pros, the other 3 agreed, and all 4 of them came back, and they won another championship down at the Omni. Well, Georgia Dome, I guess it was. So, but that rarely happens. And
the Rups Runts liked each other. They weren't bosom buddies, but they all got along. They ran around together on road trips.
Oh, that's great.
And
good example, Mike, is Tommy Cron and Larry Conley sort of gave the limelight over to Riley and Dampier in their senior year.
Yes. that was a big part of it.
Huh.
And when they I watched us struggle through the preseason and thinking, and I was watching and refereeing those scrimmages, and we just weren't getting it done. And I was thinking my legacy as a manager was going to be that I was going to have been the manager of the worst team Coach Rupp ever had. But he kept pushing and pushing, and Riley and Conley and Cron were the leaders, but then Riley was the enforcer.
Mm-hmm.
He had everybody doing what they're supposed to do and said, "Yeah, you're going to listen to Larry and Tommy," and they just came together. And the result was the ball never stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're 20 points ahead, then they would look around and say, "Okay, Pat only has eight points tonight. Let's get him the ball."
Mm-hmm.
But when the game was on the line, nobody cared who scored. We just wanted to win.
Yeah, and most of them at home were like 30-point victories. Just blew people out, SEC out when it came to home games.
Yeah,
they were tough.
Conditioning was a huge part of it. That was the first year Joe Hall did his preseason conditioning, and boy, there was a lot of griping and complaining and
mm-hmm.
rolling up and stuff. But he got them to hang in there, and he got Coach Rupp to back him. And so they were in great shape when the practice started. And so then you could work on fundamentals and stuff for 2 or 3 days, and then have a scrimmage and keep everybody in pretty good shape.
Yep.
And there were a lot of games, if you'll check, that with about 4 minutes to play, we were very close to the other team, either behind or slightly ahead. And then we would blow them out in the last 4 minutes because they were done.
Like I remember, you probably do too if you made that trip. They went down and played Texas Tech.
Yes,
and scored 117 points on them.
Yeah.
Of course, Texas Tech wasn't the Texas Tech they are now, but
right.
117 points is in a college game of 40 minutes is something. But they were good. No, and as you said, the way they moved that ball, it was just something to behold. They were fun to watch, and if they
excuse me, I didn't mean to.
Oh, that's all right.
That was a fun trip for us because that was back when the airlines were really something. And so they, as we flew out to Lubbock, they served us dinner, and it was a really fancy kind of chicken, a guinea, well done with all kinds of vegetables and dessert. And of course, the basketball players just ate it all up. So then we got to the hotel, and Coach Rupp called me up to his room, and he said, "Well, Slim, what do you think the guys want to do tonight?" And I said, "Coach, I think they still want to get something to eat." And he said, "Eat? They've just been fed the finest meal you could possibly be fed by the airlines." And I said, "Yeah, Coach, but it wasn't enough. These guys are hungry." So he reached in his pocket and he threw $200 on the bed, and he said, "Go feed them, Slim. Get them ready."
That's funny. That's funny. Something else, and we probably need more time, but, well, we have no limit, I guess, but who do you guys think was the best play-by-play announcer to ever do it at Kentucky? Claude, or I'm assuming it's you down to two, Claude or K. Wood?
Well, that's a tough one.
Yep.
I listened to K. Wood more, but Claude Sullivan was really, really, really good.
Yep.
He had that announcer's voice, and I'm also flavored by the fact that he was the Cincinnati Reds radio announcer in my teenage years too. So
right,
I'm going to be a contrarian, and I'll pick Claude Sullivan.
Well, I would agree with that. I listened to both of them, obviously, every chance I got, and but Claude was just a little bit classier, a little bit better, I thought.
Yeah. Well,
not that either one was bad; they were both super announcers, but Claude was just really, really amazing.
No,
he was the primary announcer. Kaywood was sort of the secondary announcer because they both announced the games. In fact, Kaywood really was more football, and he was the Derby announcer and all that kind of stuff. But when it came to basketball, Claude was the primary and Kaywood secondary.
Well, there
on
was
different stations.
there was a time when Kaywood came in and nobody knew who he was in Lexington. He had already been at at Waukee or one of the big channel in Louisville, but he was unknown. He was unknown when he first came to Lexington, and and that's when they went to one station. I don't know who was that. It wasn't Shively, but one of the ADs. It was actually driven by Jim Host. That why spread it out, give all these rights, media rights, and everything to one company, and that's what they did. And now every school's got they don't have. I mean, one time you could look on Press Row there and see 5 or 6 different flags, so to speak, or draping the tables. You had Ashland Oil and Standard Oil and all those, and each had their own favorite announcer. I think Claude was Standard Oil, but they were both good. They both had, as I mentioned, their favorite cliche. Claude, and I've never, to my knowledge, I heard this since, but he liked to say Tom Tom. I remember specifically he was saying, Dickie Parsons out top of the keys, pom-pomming the ball, and then, of course, Kaywood had a few. It's Gravy from the Corner, write it down. It was a good one from Kaywood, and there were some others.
My favorite Kaywood was the Cats are running. That was his signal to the audience that we're going to win this game tonight. No matter what the score is or what. He could sense that the ball game was going UK's way.
Yep. Hate to mention a Tennessee guy, but John Ward had a good one with Bottoms when they scored, and you can only do that on a long shot. I think you can do it on a layup, but have enough time in there to get it in. But Ward was very good. And Ward said that the best announcer in the SEC was Kaywood, which is not too big a leap of faith, and he didn't maybe get the attention of some of the other guys because football wasn't as big at UK. But that's an interesting subject there. And of course, Kaywood had a good one on the races where they'd be rounding the last turn, and he said, "And they're coming to me. They're coming to me." And, which was
he was a great announcer for the Derby.
Yes, he was. He had such a great voice, distinctive voice, and for a guy that grew up in I got relatives up there, and my mother grew up there, so I'm not knocking it. I'm a country boy for the first 6 years of my life, but he didn't pick up that country accent. Just a great accent and clear, and he was
he in your same fraternity, Gary? I forget what fraternity he was in. Kaywood was in a fraternity at UK.
Well, he's a lot older than I am, or was, but
I know, but not with you. But
I don't think so. I was at Sigma Chi, Florida, and I don't know what he was at UK. We had Faye Dunaway as our Derby queen one year. She was 10 years older or something, but
wow.
That was before she did Bonnie and Clyde, I think. Well, she was still in college, had to be, I guess. But Mike, do you have any Adolph stories? We're kind of getting toward, unless you all have another subject, kind of toward the end here.
Well, I was just thinking today about here we go with the SEC tournament, and of course we didn't have the SEC tournament when I was there. So, and Coach Rupp was not in favor of it. He wanted to win the conference and then go to the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking once they had the SEC tournament, I think one of the best games I ever saw was the year after they had won the 78 championship. They were playing with Truman Claytor and Kyle Macy, and I can't remember, there was a freshman African American,
Dwight Harrison.
Dwight Harrison. He was probably the quickest person I ever saw get up and down the court, and they were playing Alabama, who had Reggie King.
Yep.
And it was a barn burner. I think Kentucky finally won 101-100.
Yep.
And when the game was over, I was up about the 5th row in the second deck, and Jerry Clower, the comedian, was sitting down on the front row. And he gets up and turns around and looks at the crowd and puts those arms up like he would do, and he said, "Woo-wee, woo-wee, have you ever seen a ball game like that?" says, "What's that other league? The ADD? Do you think they could do that?"
I remember that
That
game.
was a good tournament that year. We lost
Yeah.
the Tennessee game in the final
Yes.
in overtime, but
Yes.
somebody got injured. I forget, one of the guards got injured, or we would have won that game too, and
Yeah.
we would have won an NCAA. That was a team that wasn't figuring to do any postseason play, and then they lost the SEC tournament in overtime, and they lost the NIT game in overtime to Clemson in Rupp. So
But somewhere in there, Kenny Walker came in. I think it's a year after you all talking, because Kenny hit that last shot.
He wasn't there that year. Yeah.
He hit that last shot to beat Auburn, and the ball just kind of bounced 2 or 3 times on the rim and rolled in, and then Barkley hit the floor just in agony. That was his. I think he was a senior, and that was his last game.
Yeah.
And they show that from time to time on TV. But those were the good old days. It seems like, compared to now.
Yeah.
Gary, one thing you mentioned before we were talking about the Kentucky State tournament, we talked about Larry Conley. The 1961 Ashland Blazer Tomcats are considered probably the best team, maybe the best team ever to play in the state tournament. They won it, and they won it pretty easily in 1961. Conley was a junior.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 62, Conley was one of the top 5 players in the country, along with Mike Silliman. So Kentucky had 2 of the 5 best. Now, Silliman went to Army, but UK was right behind Army in his choices. So those were the days when Kentucky basketball produced really, really good, highly ranked high school players.
Well, yeah.
Year after year after year.
Yeah, I watched that game, Silliman and Conley in the state tournament.
Yeah,
that was a really great game. It's a shame Silliman didn't go somewhere where the basketball was bigger.
Yeah.
But I guess he didn't want to.
He died way too young of was it a heart attack or cancer? But he died, I think, about 30 years old. He didn't live very long.
He was a heck of a player, that's for sure.
Yep. He's only 6'6", and he played center.
Yeah.
College, I presume he had to play forward.
Did he have to go to Vietnam since he went to Army? Because he got out of Army in 1966, and Vietnam was hot and heavy then. I bet he spent some time in Vietnam.
He may have. I don't know about that. But
there was a lot of guys going. I was in that group. I was lucky enough to miss it, but it was a good chance if you were in the Army. That's where you were going.
Yeah.
That's where Alvin Ratliff went after he flunked out of UK as a freshman. He went to Vietnam for 2 years before he played college ball when he got back.
From Meade Memorial, I think it was, up in the mountains too. He was a great jumper. He could really get off the floor. Yeah. For some reason back then, the guys weren't as smart, or they had bad tutors, because it seemed like every year they had 2 or 3 guys flunk out, and that never happens now. And you never hear of another team that plays to Christmas, and then they come out and one of their guys is gone because he didn't make the grades. That just doesn't happen anymore.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, we put in a pretty strong tutoring program when I was at UK, and that helped fix that problem. Because several of our freshman players went on suspension, or whatever you call it, because they didn't make at least a 2.0. So they really bumped it up. You mentioned that Larry Conley's high school team. I agree with you. That was one of the best, if not the best, high school team ever. And Larry loves to talk about it. I was talking with him this morning, Gary. You had asked me, and he agreed that later this month, said he needed to get his taxes done. I told him, well, we didn't want him to go to jail for not doing his taxes. But he's agreed to come on one of our shows.
Good.
Ooh, golly. That'd be good.
Yeah, the listeners will love that, I think.
Yeah.
Gary, you and I talked this morning. Today happens to be International Women's Day.
Yeah.
I suggested a couple of women who've had a big role in UK men's basketball, Marta McMacken and Sandy Bell.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, Mike, do you remember Marta McMacken, secretary to the coaches?
Yes. I didn't know her well, but I remember the name. The one I remember was Coach Rupp's secretary. I can see her, but I can't think of her name. But she kept Adolph happy, which was a constant challenge.
Yeah.
So
that's a big role.
Yeah.
To the coaches have an assistant like that, because the coaches are good at coaching. They're not good at organizing their daily schedules and doing this when they're supposed to do that and all that sort of thing. So
I want to know how she kept Adolph happy, though.
Well, she was in there telling him what to do and when. He would call me in to talk about what he was going to do in practice. And he would say things, now, Slim, if it gets to be 4:20 and we haven't done this, you come remind me. And so I was, taking notes and trying to be sure. And gosh, I'll think of her name soon. But she would come in and, tell him, okay, so-and-so's on the phone, or you got to remember to take your medicines, or you got a meeting coming up before practice. And I mean, she was his minder, I guess, prompter on what he was supposed to do. And he really appreciated it. They have, from what I could tell, a very fine relationship.
Oh, that's good. Sandy Bell also has done a great job. I think he's just retired, didn't she? But she did a great job with the eligibility, compliance, and all that. Try to make sure we weren't cheating. I don't know if she was there when Eddie Sutton was there, but
I think she was after that. She was really, you and I talked this morning, Gary. C.M. Newton had a good reputation. Patino had a good reputation for following the rules. And she was crystal clean as far as I was concerned. She made darn sure that people were aware of what the rules were and weren't. You remember the case, I forget the guy's name, but he was transferred might have been from Florida to either Louisville or UK. And Sean Woods maybe took him to a derby party over in Louisville.
Oh, yeah.
Against the rules.
Yeah.
Was his name Frazier? I don't remember his name, but
yeah, I remember that.
So Sandy Bell got UK to say, sorry, we made a mistake. We're not going to recruit him anymore.
But yeah, she's been around a long time, and I think has just retired. And she was very helpful to Mitch Barnhart. She was his right-hand arm, I think, and to keep everybody eligible. I'm not sure she worked for anybody with basketball, but she may have done other sports too. I think the eligibility was only an issue with basketball and football.
Yeah.
The other
UK has a really good record otherwise, and they do in those sports now too. But other sports, UK's always been high on graduating numbers and high on all academic and 3.0 or better and all that kind of stuff. We had the solution to that at Purdue. We run a 6-point system. So getting a 3.0 or better just meant you had to get all D's.
And this is at a great institution of engineering.
Yeah. Yeah. They've since switched to a 4-point system like everybody else.
Was it a Purdue engineer that designed the building in Florida last year that collapsed?
Could well have been. 1 out of every 17 engineers in the world has a degree from Purdue.
Is that right?
Really?
Huh.
Yep.
Interesting. I didn't know that. That's great. I tell this to my grandkids every now and then, but don't speak unless you can improve. This is Adolph. Don't speak unless you can improve on silence.
Exactly. That was one of his rules, and when he was interviewed, he would tell the media that was because they would always ask, "Can your players speak up in practice?" And that was his rule.
Yep. Riley said Conley, I guess, said that other than calling a pick and calling a play, that was it, that you're allowed to talk in practice.
Yes. And Larry, every now and then, when the coaches were getting after him, would stop and ask a question. And they always respected Larry and would answer the question. Yeah. I remember one day we were having a scrimmage, and, they got after each other pretty good, because if you were one of the earlier subs, the better you looked in practice, the better chance you had to play. And so they were really going after each other. And about 5 times up and down the floor, Lancaster was on Conley and just yelling at him about something. And so finally, Larry just stopped with the ball and said, "Coach, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. Can you help me?" And it was one of the best lessons I ever heard of basketball. He went back over the last 6 times down the floor and told Larry what he did versus what he should have done. And like he wasn't at the right spot to get a rebound. He didn't meet his pass. He didn't play defense. I mean, he had it all chronicled. And so practices at Kentucky were very intense. And I think one of the reasons they always play well under pressure is that they've already had all that pressure in practice.
Yep.
That's probably a big reason for, I think, Pitino's success. Pitino's practices were really, really hard from what I've been told.
Yeah, he would work about 2 hours on a day of a game. In their morning walkthrough, which is generally just get your leg, shoot a little bit. I mean, he would have a major practice on that morning of a game that night.
I hadn't heard of anybody doing that.
He is tough. It was tough, and that's why they always and they press so much and wore teams down. And I've got one more here. This one's you got to think just a second on. You don't do what you do because you feel the way you feel. You feel the way you feel because of what you do.
That's a good one.
Yeah. That's
Adolf?
No, that's Gary Waddell. That's something I read.
Well, that's a good one too, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I know there's a lot of books written about Adolf, but I hope folks that have, like you, Mike, have a personal memory of working with him. Either whether you write a book or a journal or how you do it, write it down so that people in the future can read and learn about him. Because I would hate for people 50 years from now to say, Adolf Rupp, who in the heck was that?
Yeah, I agree with you. And yes, I am working on one, not as hard as I should, but because I was fortunate enough to be pretty close to him for four years. He seemed to like me, and I always followed up on everything he said, and so we got along well. And he was quite the character and the person of. He demanded excellence from me as the manager and from everybody else. Very, very intense person, but fair. He didn't brook nonsense from anybody. So I think he's the best coach that this country's ever had, but I'm probably biased. If you go back and look at his record and adjust it for the number of games, he actually comes out ahead of the others.
Yeah.
And he set a tone every day in practice, and every game. He was just very on top of everything, and always looking for something else to get a little bit of an edge. And he was kind of paranoid, and it actually helped him because he would go around asking people, "What do you think?" And he didn't tell them whether he agreed or not. He just wanted to know what they thought, and then he would go think about it. And then, if it made sense to him, he would, work it into his views and curriculum. But he was all he wanted in life as a coach was one more point than you, and the game was over. And everything was focused on getting that advantage.
Yeah, I remember growing up. If it was a close game, UK, much more times than not, always came out ahead. That was just, I don't know, training or better players or what, but they rarely lost a close game. Over the years, that has changed a little bit. And there were some upsets in the late 70s, early 70s, with losing to Western Kentucky, got murdered in Athens, and losing to Jacksonville and some of those things. But losing to Ohio State in Memorial Coliseum, but usually they came out ahead.
You guys know that Adolf was UK's third choice in 1930. They offered the job to two other college coaches, and both of them turned him down. And Adolf was third choice, and thank goodness.
Yeah.
Because they could not have hired a better coach possible.
And Adolf says when he visited the first time, he didn't know what he got himself into. He called it Shantytown. I'm not sure if that's politically correct, but it's what he called it.
Crawltown was the more correct name, I guess.
Yeah, but I guess all around what is now the Coliseum were these tiny little houses and so forth. And so he was not very impressed by that. And then they finally built, well, he's the guy that built Memorial Coliseum, so it must have been the old gym that he was talking about, because he came in 31, the Memorial Coliseum opened in 50, so, which was the best.
Alumni gym that would have been, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it's alumni gym.
Yeah.
I used to scrimmage other college guys in that gym when I was in school. It became the kind of part of the physical education program.
Yeah. Well, it is now. They've dressed up the outside of it with brick, and they didn't want it to, the new student center right next to it's all new, but they didn't want, for tradition's sake and people getting upset with them, they did not do much to touch the old gym. They, again, put a new facade and dressed it up, but the skeletons of it are still just like they were, 80 years ago or something. They won, 2 championships there, I guess? Yeah, 2 championships in the old...
3. 48, 49, 51.
Okay.
Because the Coliseum didn't open until 53.
Okay. And then they won the 58, and then that was Adolph's last one.
Yeah.
So, well, guys, this has been enjoyable. Hope our listeners have enjoyed it, and we should be up on this Thursday or Friday, I think, to be listened to or presented, whatever the term is, and we'll be back next week. We're going to be in a regular habit now of coming out weekly, and we thank you very much for listening. Take care.
Thanks for having me, and Mike, you have a good day down there in Austin.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you both. Take care. Bye now.
Both of you, great. Thank you.
Bye now.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Kentucky Basketball Then and Now. Mixed by soundsational audio expert Daniel Dottridge of Atlanta Podcast Recording, with web hosting by Buzzsprout. On behalf of hosts Gary Waddell and Mike Harreld, go Big Blue.